Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson with you. Senator, it is a lot that we have to talk about. A lot of it is sad news, including the attacks that we've witnessed in this country and also abroad. It's going to be a show where we have to deal with some warnings that came a long time ago that people didn't pay attention to.
Well, evil is in the world, and unfortunately this weekend it became abundantly clear for anyone who was watching. We saw the weekend start off with the horrific shooting at Brown University. Then shortly thereafter, we saw the mass shooting in Australia targeting the Jewish community there. And as you and I are recording this late Sunday night, the news just broke that Rob Reiner and his wife were both murdered, apparently by a family member. And so it really has been a difficult weekend, a weekend of horrific murder. We're going to break down and talk about all of that in today's podcast.
I want to talk to you real quick about something you can give yourself this holiday season, and that is the celebration of knowing that you're working with a cell phone provider, a bill you're going to have every month. And the difference is when you switch to Patriot Mobile, I'm with Patriot Mobile. I've traveled literally all over the world to Israel, and my phone coverage was perfect. Now, I celebrate them every month because I know I'm fighting for what I believe in. And right now, for a limited time, Patriot Mobile is running the red, white, and blue deal. Your once-a-year chance to get a free smartphone just for switching to America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. You get a brand new phone absolutely free while supplies last. And for more than 12 years, Patriot Mobile has been defending faith, family, and freedom while giving the same or better premium coverage on all three major U.S. networks. You get unlimited data, mobile hotspots, international roaming. They do it all. And when you switch, you never sacrifice quality or service. But when you switch, what happens is something amazing. About 5% of your bill every single month goes back to support conservative causes, conservative groups and organizations that stand up for our First and our Second Amendment, that stand up for the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. You keep your number, keep your phone, and you can upgrade to that free smartphone today. So what are you waiting on? Call Patriot Mobile. They have a 100% U.S.-based team that can literally activate you in minutes. PatriotMobile.com/verdict. That's PatriotMobile.com/verdict, or call them at 972-PATRIOT and use the promo code VERDICT, and you will also not only get that free phone, but you can get a free month of service. PatriotMobile.com/verdict or 972-PATRIOT. Take advantage of the best smartphone deal of the year. Senator, let's start with Rob Reiner for a moment. It's still shocking news that we're hearing about the death, the murder of Rob and his wife. He is someone that's involved in some of your favorite movies as well.
Yeah, look, the news just broke today, and here's what People magazine is reporting. Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, were found dead in their Los Angeles home on Sunday, December 14th. Authorities responded to a medical aid call around 3:30 p.m., discovered their bodies. Multiple sources tell People that the killer was the couple's son, Nick Reiner. Nick previously spoke publicly about his long battle with drug addiction and periods of homelessness. And People magazine goes on to say Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, were killed by their son, Nick, according to multiple sources who have spoken with family members. Police have not yet confirmed the account. On Sunday, the Los Angeles Fire Department was called to a home to provide medical aid. Upon arrival, they found a man, 78, and a woman, 68, dead. Police say Nick, 32, is alive and being questioned. No arrests have been made. And, you know, I have to say this is sad on so many levels. Yeah. One, I'll just say, look, mental illness is real. And I don't know the medical condition of Rob Reiner's son. But I operate from an assumption that any time a son kills his parents, that you're dealing with significant mental illness. Yeah. And it is heartbreaking, the tragedy of a mother and father apparently allegedly killed by their son, the tragedy for the son's life, that for the rest of his life, he will live with that. I don't know if he had apparently struggled with addiction for a long time. I don't know if he was under the influence of drugs or dealing with significant mental illness or both. But it's just sad. And I'll say, look, I didn't know Rob Reiner, but he was an amazingly talented man. He was a funny man. He was, he first broke onto the national scene as an actor, as Meathead. In All in the Family, and playing Archie Bunker's son-in-law, and he was skilled as an actor, but his real gift was in writing and directing movies, and he was the son of the legendary comedian Carl Reiner, who was incredibly talented as well. I cannot imagine what their dinner table was like with Reiner and Rob Reiner, cracking jokes. But you look at Reiner's first movie was 1984. This is Spinal Tap, a classic. He then made The Sure Thing. He then made Stand By Me. His fourth movie was my all-time favorite movie ever, The Princess Bride in 1987. He followed that up with When Harry Met Sally, another fantastic classic, one of the best and funniest comedies ever made. From there, he made Misery, another terrific dark comedy. From there, he made A Few Good Men. I mean, one of the most spectacular military drama, legal shows. Jack Nicholson's testimony on the stand is spectacular.
Iconic.
In 1995, he made The American President, another great movie. I've only seen it about 100 times. Ghost of Mississippi, Rumor Has It, The Bucket List, LBJ, God and Country. He was incredibly talented, and I just, want to say I'm mourning the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. That is not murder is a horrible thing, and when mental illness is likely contributing to it in a family, it's just tragic, and it makes your heart grieve.
Yeah, it really does. Amen to that. I couldn't agree with you more. We move from that to even more tragedy at Brown University, and then we go to Australia from there. But let's start with Brown University. We don't know as much. They're holding a lot of information back, apparently, in this investigation of the attack there. We are starting to get some of the names of the victims and those who have been shot and those who have been killed. It is so tragic. They were dealing with exams and exam prep when this attack took place in this classroom. It really is shocking and saddening to see this again.
No, it really is sad. Students were apparently in a classroom doing exam preparation, final exam preparation for an economics exam, for the broad introductory economics class that apparently roughly half the students at Brown take. It was the most wide signed-up class. We know that 2 people were murdered, 9 people were injured as a shooter entered the class and began opening fire. For several hours, the shooter was on the run. They didn't know who he was. As of Sunday night, police have said that they have an individual in custody, and they said that he was found at a hotel in Coventry, about 17 miles south of Providence. At this point, the police have not said whether this individual is affiliated with Brown University, so we don't know. We don't really know who he is. We don't know what his motive was. I assume that will come out in the hours and days to come. We'll understand why this lunatic wanted to commit a mass murder, but we don't know his motivation. And I want to be slow to speculate because it could be any of a lot of things. But the mayor has said 7 individuals remain in stable condition. 1 is critical but stable condition, and another's been discharged. So one of the people injured is out of the hospital. And I will say, it's just horrific. No one should go to school and fear for this sort of horror. We see far too many of these. We see school shootings. I've seen them in Texas. I've seen them at Santa Fe. I've seen them at Uvalde. Santa Fe is a high school that is maybe 45 minutes away from my house. And I was home the morning of the shooting. And so I was on the campus within about an hour of when the shooting occurred and saw the tragedy, saw the horrific suffering. I was also on the ground in Sutherland Springs, the worst church shooting in our nation's history. We have far too many of these. Here, as I said, we don't know the motivation, and so more may become that we don't know if it is motivated by terrorism. We don't know if it is motivated by something specific to Brown. We don't know if it had a racial component or a component targeting any particular community. All of those we have seen in prior mass shootings. But I'm hopeful. It has been reported multiple times that the shooter yelled something in the classroom before he opened fire, but we don't have confirmation what he yelled. And so my assumption is that we will get information. We will get, hopefully, this individual's social media record. I don't know if he's written anything about what his motivation is, what his connection was, if any, to Brown University and to that classroom and to the people he fired upon. But it is just that there is far too much evil. There is far too much hate. And dealing with criminality and violent criminals, we need to do much, much more to deal with criminality. And I'll tell you, my prayers are with Rob Reiner's family and everyone grieving his loss. My prayers are with everyone in the Brown University community who is grieving those who lost loved ones, those who are shocked and afraid. It was reported that at least 2 of the students at Brown had previously been in school shootings in high school, which is just, you and I are both parents, and no child should have to endure that, much less endure it twice. And I think we need to be much, much more vigorous in going after violent criminals, preventing these sorts of mass crimes before they happen. It's one of the reasons why doing things like securing the border and arresting gang members and potential terrorists is so important, because many of these instances, mass murders are carried out by terrorists, and we've seen that happen in the United States. We saw that happen as recently as the 2 National Guardsmen that were shot in D.C. By the Afghan Islamic radical who'd been brought into this country under the Biden administration, and we saw it horrifically in Australia. And I will say what happened in Australia just takes the breath away. With Australia, we know significantly more. It is clear that in Australia, this was targeting the Jewish community. At this point, 16 are dead, 40 are injured in the mass shooting on Bondi Beach. It appears, it's being reported, that the 2 gunmen were a father and son. Can you imagine the level of hate that a father and son, to say with your son, here's how I want to go out in the world? Because look, when you carry out a mass shooting like that, you're expecting to die. You're expecting this to be your last act on planet Earth. And the level of bilious hate, and this was targeting a Hanukkah celebration on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. It was clearly targeting the Jewish community, and I think unquestionably motivated by anti-Semitism, by hate of Jews, hate of Israel. We will find out more, but I don't think any reasonable observer can doubt that at this point. And I got to say, the fact that it's a father and son, it really is an element of this story that I think just haunts you. And it reminds me of after October 7th, the Israeli government intercepted a lot of cell phone conversations, intercepted back and forth of terrorists. And I listened to about an hour worth of intercepted conversations on October 7th of people committing horrific murders, people committing horrific rapes, motivated by the same thing, by hatred of Jews. And there's one exchange in particular on those intercepted calls that haunts me to this day.
I know exactly which one you're about to talk about, and it's going to be the terrorist calling back to his parents.
Yeah, it's a young Hamas terrorist.
And they celebrated him.
Yes, it's a young Hamas terrorist who calls home to his dad in Gaza, and he is celebrating, and he's so excited, and he says, "Dad, I killed 10 Jews today. I killed 10 Jews." And the father says, "Praise Allah," and he calls his mother over. And his mom, all excited, comes rushing over to hear the great news that her son had murdered 10 Jews that day. Yep. And there was something surreal about listening to someone who had just committed mass murder, murdered 10 innocent individuals. We don't know if those were elderly people, women, children. We don't know who the 10 were.
Yeah.
But he was so proud that he wanted to brag to his parents. And the father's first reaction is to call his wife, look what a great thing our son did. And that, I have to say, evil and hate is so saturated when you want to do that. And I look here at a father and son who the father decides, here's how I want my son to die. Here's how I want me to die. And here's how I want my son to die. We're going to kill as many Jews as possible because that is the sum total of all we care about in the world. It truly is evil.
You know, one of the things that I think was also shocking, if you've seen the video of that shooting, is when the son goes down, the dad doesn't check on the son. The dad keeps shooting. They're side by side. I mean, it's just, like as you mentioned, this mindset of just pure evil. I call it sadistic evil.
Hate.
Where your own child has been shot. You don't stop. You just keep going to kill as many Jews as possible. That is what we witnessed, which is truly unbelievable to think. I mean, my son, anything happens, your daughter's, anything happens, you stop what you're doing, you check. It was like, hey, we're going to go out guns a-blazing. This is how we're going to end it. And we're doing it in the name of radical Islam.
Well, and you and I also saw the video of the Australian man who rushes in and tackles one of the gunmen and wrestles the gun out of his hand.
What a hero, by the way. What
extraordinary hero. I mean, that someone sitting there just firing a rifle, murdering people, to charge him, to tackle him. You're obviously taking your own life in your hands, to put it mildly.
And to take the gun away was, I mean, it was incredible.
That's not an easy thing to do, and he forcibly took it away. And it's, there are mixed reports online about who that gentleman is. So I want to just refrain because I'm not sure from their conflicting press reports. But I will say, whoever he is, that was extraordinary heroism, and I have no doubt that his courage that day saved lives.
Yeah, I want to bring in some of the national security and the issues at home when I see this. There have been lots of warnings in Australia by some of the media, some in their political parties over there for years, saying we're allowing too many people to come in that are unvetted. We have that same warning here. We talked about the number of people we're worried about that have come across our southern border that could be on the terrorist watch list here on the last show. It's not hundreds. It's now into the thousands is the warning coming from the Trump administration. We see this attack that happened, for example, at Brown University. And I think the part that scares me the most is even when these things happen, Democrats never want to miss an opportunity to push their agenda and also to attack Donald Trump. I'll give you an example of that. One of your colleagues, Senator Chris Murphy, thought it was appropriate Sunday morning to go on State of the Union on CNN and attack President Trump for the Brown University shooting. And I want to play for you what he said, and then I want to get your reaction to it.
Not shocking, because over the last year, President Trump has been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. He is restoring gun rights to felons and people who have lost their ability to buy guns. He eliminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Protection, and he has stopped funding mental health grants and community anti-gun violence grants that Republicans and Democrats supported in that 2022 bill. So he has been engaged in a pretty deliberate campaign to try to make violence more likely in this country.
It's been a part of a deliberate campaign for more violence. And he said it not once, but twice in two different ways. The first time he said Donald Trump's been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. Then he goes a step further and says he's advocating and creating the violence. We don't know much about Brown. We started that with the show. So why even say this when we don't even know anything at all about the shooting there? Number one. Number two, they're not even going to take a moment and talk about what the actual cause could be. This is somehow Orange Man bad. Let's blame him for a shooting at a university.
And let's be clear, we're just over a year out from President Trump being shot and being the target of 2 different assassination attempts. We are just months out from Charlie Kirk being murdered. We are weeks out from National Guardsmen being shot by Afghan radicals that the Democrats let in and didn't vet. We are weeks out from shots fired at ICE agents and ICE agents being targeted by radical zealots. And listen, you and I have talked about on this show how there is a real divide between left and right. The left justifies violence. Let me be absolutely clear. Violence is never, ever, ever okay. I do not seek violence against any of my political opponents. It is absolutely unacceptable, period, the end. You and I have talked about the polling numbers that show an increasing number, in the neighborhood of half of self-described Democrats say that violence is justified against Donald Trump or violence is justified against Elon Musk. This is unacceptable. And I will say, you know, it's interesting that Chris, listen, anytime there is a crime, Chris's answer is more gun control. It is to disarm law-abiding citizens because he believes the way you stop crime is to prevent you from defending yourself and your family. That is Chris's go-to. It is the go-to of almost every Democrat. But let's call out what happened in Australia clearly and unequivocally. You know, it was interesting today. You saw a number of people on the left putting out tweets that were basically thoughts and prayers with the people of Australia. It was interesting. A number of them refused even to acknowledge that it was the Jewish community that was targeted. It was just
very
sort of
generic. And people are like, this was a Jewish event publicized online to start the Jewish holiday and to celebrate being Jewish.
Yes. No, this was a Jewish gathering celebrating Hanukkah. Among those targeted was at least one rabbi. But look, for those leftists who are putting out the phrase thoughts and prayers, I have a simple question. What do you think globalize the Intifada means?
Yeah.
Comrade Mandami has repeatedly chanted, globalize the Intifada. The Intifada is this. That is the Intifada being globalized. It is radical Islamists murdering Jews. If you chant globalize the Intifada, you are saying you want more of this. That is why it is so wrong, the left's embrace of Hamas and radical Islam. Refusal to call it out for what it is deliberately inciting more. And you know, there's something Freudian about Democrats. You notice Chris Murphy said, well, Trump is encouraging more violence. Let's be clear. Trump is doing the exact opposite of that. He is doing everything he can to prevent violence. He is actively arresting murderers and gangbangers and terrorists. He is deporting them and removing from this country.
Going into our most dangerous cities and making them safe again. That is the guy they're now accusing of being out there selling violence, advocating for violence, spreading violence, creating violence, is how Senator Chris Murphy put it. And I'm like, hold on a second. That's a lie in D.C. That's a lie in Chicago. That is a lie in Memphis, Tennessee. That's a lie in New Orleans right now. That's a lie for a lot of what we've seen in Houston, where you and I are right now, where we've seen a lot of really bad individuals that are illegal immigrants in this country that have been taken out, thank goodness, by ICE and other law enforcement. Like, the idea that he's out there sowing violence is insanity.
Yeah, and listen, let's start with a premise that everyone within some reasonable set of bounds wants to prevent murder. Wants to see innocent people not be killed. In the Senate, I am confident all 100 senators would want to prevent murder, that we don't have anyone who is actively cheering on and eager to see more murder. However, policies have consequences. When you allow into this country terrorists like the Afghan radical who murdered one National Guardsman and severely wounded another.
Yep.
When you let into this country through open borders Hamas and Hezbollah and IRGC terrorists, you know to an absolute certainty that murders will result. When you release convicted murderers, as the Democrats did for 4 years, you know to an absolute certainty more murders will result. When you release MS-13 gangbangers into communities, you know that more murders will result. And, and at some point, you have a consequence for those decisions. And their answer is always, nope. Release all the criminals. But if we just take away the guns from Ben Ferguson, there will be no more mass shootings in Australia or at Brown University. And it is a question
in Australia,
of
they have
ideology.
incredible gun control laws there.
Yep.
And it didn't stop them. So for everybody saying, well, if we just had great gun control laws, things like Brown wouldn't happen and we had extreme gun control. Australia has it. Look at what happened today in Australia. And by the way, it took 20 minutes to apparently for this attack to stop. Police early on didn't even return fire. There's a lot of questions around that. What we do know is and you go back to anti-Semitism for a second, Senator. Netanyahu actually accused the Australian Prime Minister of having fueled anti-Semitism in Australia before this attack happened. I think that's a really important point that should be brought up, that there are people out there talking about the truth, being honest about where we are. Australia has got a real problem. There's several of their government officials now that have come out and said it in the last several hours that there has been an explosion of anti-Semitism in Australia, and it is now at a fever pitch, and this is what you get when you don't check it, and the leaders of the country don't check it. That's why Netanyahu, I think, called him out when he did.
Yeah, look, I want to be cautious about being overly critical of law enforcement at this point. Anytime there is a mass murder, there is inevitably a fog of war. It takes a while to ascertain exactly what happened, who did what. I am confident that we saw law enforcement officers exhibit considerable bravery while this was happening, and so I want to be slow to criticize law enforcement, particularly when we don't know everything that occurred. But what I think is indisputable is that when you have rhetoric calling for murder, you should not be surprised when murder results. And I want to play this clip from, this is a day after October 7th, when 1,200 Jews were murdered by Hamas in Israel. This is the protest in Sydney, Australia. Give a listen.
Senator, the part there that the audience, we played for them, is them saying, gas the Jews, gas the Jews. Moments later, they also started chanting, F the Jews. We're not going to play that here for obvious reasons, but they chanted that with as much vigor as they were chanting, gas the Jews. This, as you mentioned, right after the attacks on the worst attack since the Holocaust on Jews in Israel.
Yeah, and they also chanted Allahu Akbar, which is what has been reported that the two mass murderers chanted on Bondi Beach. Gas the Jews is not some reasonable political dispute about whether a two-state solution is the right resolution between Israel and the Palestinians. It's not arguing for middle ground or compromise. It is arguing for another Holocaust. It is calling for Jews to be put in gas chambers and exterminated. This is a crowd the day after, this is October 8th, the day after 1,200 Jews are murdered by Hamas. They're chanting, they're waving Palestinian flags, and they are saying they want more Jews murdered. So let me say, every leftist, whether they are Zoran Mandami, or whether they are in the squad in the House of Representatives, or whether they are on a college campus in one of the many anti-Semitic protests chanting globalize the Intifada, this is what they're calling for. Gas the Jews, kill the Jews, and tragically this father-son duo carried out on that political agenda. And that agenda is evil. And by the way, if you were calling for gassing or killing anyone else, that would be evil as well. If you were saying, as you and I have talked about at great length, in Nigeria, where they are killing Christians, and we have spoken out very clearly that killing Christians is wrong. By the way, they're also killing Muslims. You shouldn't be killing Muslims. Murder is wrong, period, the end. Everyone should agree on that. And there unfortunately too many on the left who embrace an ideology where they don't admit to themselves they are calling for mass murder, but there is no other interpretation of that chant, "Gas the Jews" on the streets of Sydney the day after October 7th, and tragically we saw the consequences of that this weekend.
I want to bring it back home for a second. I just want to get your thoughts. Last week we talked about how they believe there's 18,000 in this country that are on either terrorists or connected to terrorists, tied to terrorists on the watch list, or part of sleeper cells. I see what happened in Australia. I see what happened, around the world with other attacks that we've seen recently. I am very concerned that we let in so many bad guys, that we didn't remember what happened on 9/11. We didn't vet people the way we were supposed to, all because of the political correctness of the radical left and the obsession with bringing in people and not seeing who they actually are or having real honest conversations. How concerned are you about the state of security in this country right now from things like we just witnessed?
Yeah, look, I'm very concerned. I know I've talked in the last couple of days to a lot of friends of mine, a lot of Jewish friends of mine who are expressing fear if they go to synagogue, if they go to a Jewish day school, if they go to any gathering where there are multiple Jewish people gathered. They're afraid of violence. They're afraid of mass violence. I tell you, I'm also hearing my Christian friends, if they go to church, if they go to a Christmas celebration, you're seeing security ratcheted up.
I have a lot of friends right now. They're I mean, I have a lot of friends right now that they carry now to every church event because they are that concerned over it. I mean, I carry, you know that, but I always carry, and it's weird. I actually pick a higher capacity magazine when I'm going to church because I am afraid of this type of scenario taking place. I want to make sure I have enough ammo to protect my family and everybody else there that's there to worship. That's the mindset we're in right now, and it's not a crazy one either, and that scares me.
Yeah, look, it is an incredibly dangerous time. There are people who are radicals, who are evil. You know, when the Ayatollah says death to America, he means it. If he could kill the two of us, he would.
Yep.
If he could kill everyone listening to this podcast, he would. Hamas and Hezbollah, they celebrate. Iran refers to Israel as the little Satan, America as the great Satan. And understand these lunatics that are targeting Jews, they are targeting Americans. And this, the only way to deal with it is to be clear-eyed, to confront the threat head on, and to defeat it. It's why it was so important. The single most important foreign policy decision President Trump has made the second term was the decision to bomb Iran's nuclear weapons capability. Because
amen to that.
If the Ayatollah succeeded in building nuclear weapons, I don't want to find out the likelihood that he would use nuclear weapons. That instead of talking about 16 dead, we could be talking about hundreds or thousands or millions dead. And so the president carried out his responsibility as commander-in-chief to say, a theocratic lunatic who says he wants to murder us, we're not going to allow him to have weapons that would enable him to murder a vast number of Americans. That's the very essence of America First. It's the essence of a commander-in-chief fulfilling his responsibility.
Don't forget, we do the show Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Hit that subscribe or auto download button as well. We're going to keep you updated on all the news coming out of this shooting at the university. Pray for those involved. We'll also keep you updated on what we find out even more, I have a feeling, about what happened in Australia as well. So make sure you don't miss an episode by hitting subscribe or auto download. And if you like to watch the show, you can do that on YouTube. Most of the shows we do on video as well on YouTube, so you can watch on your laptop, on your phone, or on your TV at home as well. So grab Verdict with Ted Cruz there as well. And then Senator, I will see you back here on Wednesday morning.